Welcome to the Marketing Intern Spotlight. A marketing intern is a listener who's spreading our message authentically. Hear their story, their passion, and their journey. Enjoy. Because you hit us up literally right when we released Lisa's episode.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, have me on.
I know, because when I seen that, I was like, well, this is super fucking cool.
Mm-hmm. I think it was March 1st. Because I was looking back at the DMs because you gave yourself a little bio when you reached out. So I was like, all right, I got to remember the bio and then do a little my own research. And I was like, March 1st. And now it's middle of September. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you just stay in it.
Absolutely.
And it always comes back around when it's the right time.
Yes.
I believe that. I believe in that a lot.
Yeah. So let's introduce you.
Okay.
Khadijah Cooper.
Here I am.
Twin Cities comic. Sex. We're not going to call you. Are you a sex teacher? Is that how we say?
Yeah, usually educator.
Sex educator. Okay.
Yeah. I think when people hear sex teacher, they may think I'm like
teaching them.
Teaching intercourse.
Oh, yeah. And you're not doing that, just to go on the record?
I'm absolutely not doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're working to prevent pregnancy and STIs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Hey, that's very current. STIs. I remember back in my heyday of learning sex education, that's when we transitioned away from STDs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that! Look at us come around full circle. And Andrew, it looks like you missed out on the.
Yeah, I missed that wave. STI is an infection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And STD is the
disease.
It's Declan.
Yeah, I was thinking a little Declan.
Well, after Brochella, maybe.
Bochella, not to be confused with Brochella. We actually had women there, so not to brag.
It wasn't Bochella?
No, it was Bochella. I just said not to be confused with Brochella.
That's how I read it every time I seen it.
Brochella?
In my head, yeah, it just said Brochella. I didn't even read the word. I just assumed it was bro. I was like, that makes sense.
That's amazing.
My bad.
No, but that needs to happen. Well, I'm excited for that.
And I'm also illiterate, so there's that.
There you go. But yeah, I mean, we've got to know you a little bit. Like we were talking, you hit us up back in March after we had Lisa Evanson on, phenomenal Twin Cities comic, and I've gotten to know you a little bit through just being in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
You've obviously gone far more than I have. I've only been about once or twice a week, and you were just talking off air 5 times a week in the open mic scene for a while.
Yeah, I was. When I started doing comedy, it was just really important that people knew I was here, and I wanted to make like a big impression. And the only way that I could see doing that was like hitting up all the open mics that I could, and I did that, and that just helped me get booked, and then it just kind of,
snowballed from there.
Yeah,
it's freaking awesome. So kind of going backwards a little bit, where'd you grow up again, you said?
I grew up in the Twin Cities in Crystal, like a suburb.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then how did you kind of find this path into sex education, comedy, everything that you're doing right now?
Yeah. Let's start with comedy. Maybe,
yes.
Because that one goes a little back further. So when I was 8 years old, my mom brought me to a place called Pepitos, which isn't around anymore. It was like a Mexican restaurant. And she did open mics there. And so my mom was doing stand-up comedy as I'm in the back eating like chips and salsa at like 8 years old. So I would see people who are still around today, Tiffany Norton and Miss Shannon Paul, and like all these people who've been around forever doing comedy. And to me, I was like, oh my God, my mom is famous. Like that's what it really felt like. And then I was also like, this guy's throwing up next to me, like, should I be here at 8 years old? There was like also that too, like somebody help me, but nobody did. So my mom had done comedy for like 25 years, like pretty strong. And within that time, me and my mom also had a cable access show. It was called the Casey and Cece show. It was just me and my mom. It aired on like Sunday mornings right before like the highlights of the local football team. And it was just me and my mom in like the cable access studio being stupid. And I knew that it was something that I always wanted to do. And I just kind of like put it off because of like fear and insecurity and like I'm never gonna be as funny as my mom and all of these things. And I had a baby and I had this career that I was like kind of getting up and running. And then
was your mom the kind of the instigator with that show, or were you guys kind of like tag team in it?
It was like very disorganized. It was like me, my mom, 2 cameras, like Saturday morning donuts, and we just like danced and did silly stuff. But my mom tried to keep it structured. I was like, I don't I don't want it to be structured. Let's just be silly. And it like aired. I don't know why they aired it, but they did.
That's awesome.
So what was kind of your family dynamic growing up? Was it just you and your mom, or how many?
It was
really?
Yeah, it was just me and my mom, and I have like a really great network family that don't live in Minnesota, but it was really important that I spent a lot of time with them in the summer. So I would spend a lot of time with my grandmother in South Carolina and in DC, because my mom's originally from New York. So my mom transplanted to Minneapolis, but everyone else was still kind of on the East Coast and in the South. The dynamic between me and my mom is so, like, if I listed my mom on a piece of paper, nobody would say like this is the same person. Like, my mom rides a motorcycle, like a huge one. She works in corporate America. She does comedy that's like very adult, like kind of dirty comedy. There's nothing like seeing your mom like rubber tits on stage and saying she's a whore. That just puts things to perspective. You know what I mean? Like,
what was the first time you were like, when you were 8, was she telling those kinds of jokes?
Yeah, she has a joke that she still tells now. I'm gonna tell it. It doesn't matter. But it talks about her ex-husband being impotent, and like people say you are what you eat, and so she started putting yeast in the milk, and like I didn't really understand those jokes. Or like she has another joke like, oh, you are what you eat, so I should have known when he was eating nothing raisin honey. And I was like, I love Raisin Bran. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But now, like, when I was an adult, I was like, my mom was telling dick jokes in front of me. You know? Yeah. And my mom, like, loves country music. But there's something that was so embarrassing about that growing up that I appreciate now, because no matter what, my mom was always exactly who she is, and she didn't care. Like, she didn't care what people thought. She didn't care what people's opinion. Like, she did what made her happy, and she still does. So that was like such a great lesson to learn, that I always like have held with me, and I think it's really helped me like navigate this comedy career. As you know, it can feel like kind of like, am I good enough? Am I funny? Nobody laughed. Is it me? And you know, the best thing my mom told me is like, what people think about you is none of your business. Like, that's on them.
Yeah. That's incredible. I mean, your mom is truly herself to the fullest, which is awesome as a daughter, just to see that and be like, all right, I can be myself, and she's going to love me for that because I'm trying to be myself all the time. Yeah.
You know what's cool too is like it's really interesting that you had a mom grow up in comedy. Like, that's so unique, but yet you didn't even get into the industry until much later on. So in between those years from when you started, how long ago you said?
I started doing comedy.
Yeah.
February 2018.
Awesome. That's freaking sweet. So from there, and then, I mean, in those kind of gap years between there, I mean, you said you had thoughts of doing stand-up before there, but it was more like you were hesitant about it and whatnot.
Yeah.
What was kind of the hesitation or the root cause of that kind of hesitation to get up and go?
Yeah, I got knocked up. That was
first and foremost.
Yeah, like I had a baby, and then I was like kind of like a wild child before I had my daughter, and then like once I got pregnant, I was like, well, I gotta figure out my life. Like I can't be bartending and like a shot girl forever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's not for me. So I decided to go to school, got a degree in human services, thought I was gonna be a probation officer and work in youth corrections, and then I was like, hell no, like I can't, like that's not for me. And then I found sex education and sexual health, and I was like, this is it. This is me. Like, my mom telling dick jokes all those years, like this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
No way.
and that's what I'm doing now.
So you said you found it. What does that mean? You just fell into it, and you're just like, all right, I'm teaching sex.
Yeah,
I'm educating.
Yeah,
sex.
Yeah.
Teaching sex too.
I just fell into it. That's how I'm gonna tell people how I got into it. How'd you get into it? Fell into me. Fell right into me, right inside of me.
Oh.
You know.
Yeah.
No, so I needed an internship for school, and I knew about the annex because I had grown up in that area, and you know, I'd known people that used their services back in the day. So I went in and got the internship, and I was like, well, this place is cool. Like, it's just like really awesome, like teaching young kids about sex and being able to say penis multiple times a day and not get in trouble for it. I'm like, this is for me. So after I got an internship, like a part-time position became available, and then that person left, and then a full-time position became available, and I was like, well, here we are.
Wow. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So does your sex education, being able to say penis all the time, does that translate well to comedy, making new bits and whatnot?
Absolutely.
God, I can imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, it's almost unfair. I think it's almost unfair, the fact that I get to do what I do every day and can write jokes about it and go on stage and share it. And also, it's also for me a form of social justice for me, right? Because I also get to talk about like female pleasure, which is something that's really important to me, and like talking about it, because I think in my experience teaching, it's not hard for males to like be like, oh, I masturbate, or like how much, like they are always wanting to know how much masturbating is too much. They're always like, I'm on the cusp. They're always like, I think I'm on the cusp of too much. You know what I mean?
Do I have an addiction?
Yeah, they always want to know that. But like I don't necessarily get those same questions from girls, right? And it's just as important, or can be just as pleasurable. So it's like this taboo thing. So I also get to use it as this form of like, kind of silly, but like kind of important to me, social justice, to be like, yeah, girls, get in there, flick that, I don't know, whatever people want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Flick that click. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say
cool. Thank you.
anything on the back pocket.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
This is an open book here.
I love it.
And we don't cut anything either. I just wanted to put that out there. We're very, very transparent.
I love that.
Yeah.
Me too.
Good. As we all should be. You know,
try to be.
Yeah,
Right.
I think
radically transparent
yeah,
is something I've written on my whiteboard. I'm trying.
That's a good mantra.
Yeah.
Radically transparent.
Mm-hmm. It's an everyday battle.
Yeah.
Some things I don't want to share.
That's okay though. Being transparent and like having a sense of privacy are two very different things.
Sure, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to know is, speaking of like transparency, when you're teaching sex education, how old what's like that age range that you teach?
4th grade to second year college.
Wow.
Yeah.
4th graders?
Yeah. They're the sweetest, because when we come in, it's more like your body's going to change and like things are going to happen and you're not going to know, or, like things, really getting them prepared for puberty or talking about puberty. That's the extent. Everything we do is like age appropriate. It's not like I'm going in there like, hey, 4th graders come, it's not like, it's not like that.
Sure.
But they're sweet, because I think for some of them, they're like starting to experience these things, or like, morning wood and wet dreams and things like that. And they're like, I don't know what's happening to my body. And to have someone come in and be like, that's normal, your body's growing and changing. They're like, yes. I swear, this one time I went to the school and they divided the girls and the boys up, which is not best practice, but
that's how it was for me in 5th grade. We divided it up. Yeah.
We prefer to have everyone together for a number of reasons. One, because it's nice to kind of demonstrate that, look, we can have these conversations together. It's not something that has to be secret between the two. And then everyone's getting the same information at the same time. So it can kind of feel like normalizing it, right? But if you separate them, be like, you're going to learn boy stuff about your body, you're going to learn girl stuff about your body. But at the end of the day, the fact that we get to go in there, like, I'm excited about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go in there and I'm with the boys and I'm like, okay, like puberty's going to happen. Sometimes you can even get an erection out of nowhere. And that doesn't mean you're thinking about a crush or anything sexy. All of a sudden, a little boy just raises his hand really slow. He was like, one time I got an erection, I was in the shower. And I was like, that's cool, that happens. And then it was like a tidal wave, I swear to God. And this boy was like, I got an erection sitting next to my sister. I was like, hell no. I was like, whoa, okay. Time out, little ghetto kids. Stop it. It was just like, boom, boom. I got an erection on the bus. I got an erection. I was reading my dinosaur book. I'm like, all right, cool. It was like,
and you have to be up there, like, try to keep your calm. You can't start laughing at him.
No, I'm just like,
how do you keep your cool?
It's so normal to me. It's not even like, it's funnier talking to adults than it is to kids.
To a bunch of white guys who don't go through sex education every day.
Yeah,
I'm dying over here.
Yeah, yeah. Like the kids didn't even react like that. They were like, "Oh my God, I can't wait to tell it's my turn." Until when I got an erection, I'm just like, "Cool, yeah, your body's it's normal."
That's a good icebreaker.
Yeah.
Let's have every kid go around the room, raise their hand of a time they got an erection.
Yeah.
Erections are normal.
Yeah. That's so funny, because when I was single and I told guys what I did, that's how they introduced themselves. Like, hi, this is when I had an erection last. Like, it's very confusing to grown men what I do when I was single.
Mm-hmm.
You get two responses. One is like, oh, that's really great, like good, like you're doing great work. And the other one's like, well, can you teach me something? Can you be that? And I'm like, listen, if I had a nickel for everybody that wanted me to put my hair in a bow and like do this whole fantasy thing, I'd be a rich lady. Like, it's not that. Like, what I do is not sexy at all.
Is there an age group or a grade that when you get like hired out to go to, you're just like, oh boy, we're in for a treat. This is always every time I'm. Is it like, I feel like 6th and 7th graders are just kind of.
Yeah, it's the middle schoolers and the 8th graders because they think they know everything, but yet they're still very curious, you know?
Yeah, they really don't know anything. Yeah.
No, and you know, in middle school, there's this thing that's happening when people are like really self-conscious about themselves, and so they like kind of like puff up their chest a little bit to like not have the other person know that they don't know things, or just to be like, and so there's a lot of that happens in middle school, like especially with anonymous questions. That's where the pussy stank question came from.
Yep. And if you want to see that joke, you can head on over to Khadijah's Instagram handle, which is at
K Cooper Comedy.
There we go.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you get the most questions about like, is masturbating too much okay? Like, how to make a girl squirt. Like, they really want these like how-to things. I think it comes from porn, right? Like, they're watching porn and they're like, whoa, I gotta make sure I know how to make somebody do that. So there's a lot of questions about acts and like how to and like yeah,
because they can't YouTube that. They're not going to get good answers.
They're not going to get good answers, or like, how big should my penis be, or like, will my penis get bigger, or like, when will I get boobs?
Yeah.
A lot of those kind of questions.
That makes sense.
Anonymous questions. That just opens up the floodgates to everything.
It does, but it's the best.
Sure.
It's my favorite. And then like in high school, the questions just get like really real. Like, I don't protected sex on Saturday. What should I do? Get Plan B. Like, if you don't want to pregnant, you know, like they're just like very real. Like this, like we're in it. We're in relationships. It's getting rough, or we're in relationships and like I'm doing things like it. So sometimes in high school, it can be more like sad. Like, don't write this anonymously. Like, I want to talk to the person who wrote this. Right? It's really important.
Absolutely. You mentioned porn earlier.
Yeah, let's go back to that.
Yeah, let's just dive right into the porn bucket. I want to know your thoughts on almost just the industry in general and how it's affected sex culture and relationships in general. Because I've read a lot saying it's just very, very harmful, but I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, so I'll start with a positive perspective on porn, because I also, like, working in sex ed, it's a lot of, like, porn can be bad. It gives, like, people unrealistic body issues. We know all this stuff, right? But here's some things that can be really positive about porn when people, like, understand and are mindful about it. One, porn can really allow a couple to explore each other in ways that maybe they're not comfortable saying, right? You can kind of be like, here, let's watch this, and like that. You know what I mean? It kind of can open that up a little bit. It can also spark fantasies inside of people that maybe they didn't know that they had, that they wanted to try. I think it also can be informative about things that they don't want to try. If you watch something and it gives you like a physical, visceral reaction, then like you know that that's something you don't want to try. And if a partner tries to ask you to do that, or maybe wants to try that, then you already know your boundaries and saying no. I think when we think about porn in that way, it can actually bring couples together. Now, when I'm saying that, I'm really talking about adult couples, not like youth. Like it can
7th graders.
Yeah. Listen, 7th graders, just watch a good squirt video and you'll just come right together. No, that's not what I'm saying. But like for adults, it can bring them closer together in like that physical intimacy that maybe they haven't like experienced or had before, right? Because everyone's coming with their own sexual history and their own sexual experience, and sometimes porn can really help like brighten that up a little bit, or shake it up, or spice it up, per se.
Yeah, but then on the flip side, in terms of, 7th graders getting their hands on porn, and probably even earlier nowadays with phones
10
and everything.
10 is the average age.
10?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Fifth grade. Yep.
5th grade.
But usually when a 10th grade or a 10-year-old finds it, it's on accident.
Yeah.
Right? They're like looking for something else that like sounds sexual, and then all of a sudden they're like, boobs on my screen. Well, since I'm here, might as well,
Yeah.
Click, click, click.
Yeah, the click
So
funnel.
usually when they find it, it's on accident.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then
But I don't know how that happened. That's what statistics. I don't know. I've never like accidentally had porn. I've Googled some shit and I've never accidentally like popped a porn has never accidentally popped
what
up.
words would like trigger?
I don't know. Penis? I don't know.
No, but it would have to be like covered a little bit in terms of like what the word is, like
they could be bad at spelling and they spell cum wrong. And
I was thinking like Cornhuskers could be porn huskers very fast. It takes one slip. It takes one typo to find porn.
One typo. That's true.
Oh man, you will always be one typo away from a dick pic.
One open text away from a dick pic as well.
Yeah, that's true. Oh my god.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's a great point. So you mentioned 10 years old is when they find, or is like a typical age for finding
average,
porn.
Yeah.
Average. What about losing your virginity? What is that stat nowadays?
I don't know, but statistics say that more young people are waiting to have sex. They're having sex later. And by the time someone is in high school, a senior, only about 50% of those people have been sexually active. Statistically. People don't believe that, but, I think what happens that people don't know is that when you talk about things and when you provide information, it like really lends itself for kids not to want to do it. So we also do parent education, and it's called like parents as the #1 sexuality educator for their kids, because we don't talk about values. We might do an activity, get kids to understand what their values are, but we're not saying any of our own values, right? That's not our place. That's for the parents to do. And when we have these parent workshops, we really tell them the more you talk about it, the less likely your child is to like engage in sex early. And if they do engage in sex early, they'll actually like be safer. So they might use a condom or be preventing pregnancy. And I think there's a lot of parents that still have that idea of like, oh, if we talk about it, they're going to do it, right? And that's actually the opposite. So we're trying to encourage parents. And, we have this motto of like early and often. It's not like this one conversation, like you have the talk and then it's done. It's like we're having these little conversations and building over time, because you're laying a foundation. So when something happens and your kid needs to like talk to you about something sensitive, like you're their person, you're their go-to person, right? And if maybe you're not their go-to person, that you make sure that they know who they can go to, right? Because I have a 15-year-old daughter. That doesn't mean that she's going to want to talk to me about stuff, even though she's been around this industry for the last 10 years, right? She's been around sex ed since she's been 5 years old.
I was going to ask that question. Yeah. Is she get kind of put off by that, or is it kind of just like, my mom's a sex educator? She's
so well adjusted. I had to do a DNA test. I was like, do you belong to me? What's happening? Like, she... but she also went to a school that got multiple of our programs. I've always had her really involved in things and leadership things. This is something that's really important to me. So, but when it comes to like sex ed and stuff, she's always just like, Mom, you go way too far. But, she has a good handle on it, because she's watching these shows that are like very graphic. And I don't censor her TV at all. Because, like, she has it in her room. She's going to watch what she wants to watch. She has a laptop. She has access to it. I'd rather know about it. But she was watching the show Euphoria.
Oh, yep.
Oh.
Hop in,
Ty.
Ty told me to watch the show.
I introduced them to it.
And I watched episode 1, and I was frightened.
Dicks.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. There's a lot of, like, I was like, and I was like, okay, let me watch this show just to know what she's watching. And I was like, oh. I mean, it was like front dicks, but also I'm really glad that TV's finally putting dicks on TV, because we've been seeing boobs forever, right? So it's like, yeah, finally put some dicks out there.
Free the dick.
Free the dick.
Yep.
God.
I'm going to get a t-shirt that says free the dick.
That show is wild just because high school's not like that at all. I gotta think.
It's probably a little like that.
Okay.
Sorry. What Andrew should have said is, Andrew's high school experience was not like that show.
Oh, okay.
And neither was mine.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I went to an all-boys
Okay.
Catholic high school.
Okay.
And there were girls on the same campus.
Yeah.
But let's just mention that it was just like pretty much a big old frat party for 4 years.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think high schools, they can be like that, because I'm not that tall. So when I'm walking the hallways, sometimes I blend a little bit. And they don't. When I'm walking in these schools, they don't know me as a teacher. They don't know me as an adult, right? Not saying that I look like a teenager, but I blend. These kids are fucking huge. And the things that I'm hearing them say, and like, I just had to look back at a couple of them like, oh my gosh. And like, they're touching each other. I mean, it's a lot. Now, I don't know if it's going as far as them, but I know like domestic violence is happening, sexual assault is happening, drugs is happening, all those things.
Mm-hmm. And with that, do you find yourself having to talk to parents frequently about helping them talk to their kids? Is that like part of your job description at all, or you don't have necessarily?
Where have you been? Didn't you hear me say that we do parent education?
Yeah, parent education. And
where were you?
I missed that.
No, I'm just kidding. We do, yeah.
Okay.
Which is, I think it's really great because we only talk to parents that have middle schoolers and high schoolers. I think we do a really great job, especially in Minnesota, supporting people who have young kids, like before kindergarten, like ECFE classes, early childhood family education. But after that, we're like, good luck in middle school. And that's when you need it the most. That's when you need the support the most, because your kid just turns into a monster. Like, they just turn into this, like, gross, like, kind of hairy, sweaty, pimply,
smelly,
like, stinky thing that you're like, who are you? And their body hurts, and they're like, I don't know how to move my body. Like, my daughter's 5'8". When she was growing, she like didn't know how to move her body. I was like, are you a baby giraffe? Get yourself together. What's happening? She's like, I don't know what's happening to my body. She just grew very fast. And I think it's really good for parents to come together and be like, oh, your kid's doing this, so is my kid. And for us to talk about development, I will say the best parenting information that I ever have gotten is knowing youth development, and like what their brain is actually going through, and understanding the steps in the process of that. That has helped me be a better parent, hands down, because it stop me from punching her, honestly. Like, it stopped me from giving her a two-piece.
She's developing. Yeah,
like,
so I don't want to break that development.
Yeah, because I almost broke her nose a couple times. Like, put your hands down, Khadijah, it's fine. Yeah, and I think parents like also kind of get that aha moment where it's like, oh, developmentally, this is what they're supposed to be going through. And I say, if you were to look at a young person's brain when they're going through puberty and in adolescence, you would cry. Like, it is so scary to like know the things that their brain is doing, and like detaching information that they don't need anymore, right? Like when you're a baby, like how you feed yourself, like in adolescence, those learned skills are like detaching. Not that you forget how to, but your brain is like, oh, I don't need to hold on to that anymore, right? I have to start thinking like critically, and like everything's not black and white, because nuance doesn't start happening until like 16, right? Because everything for an adolescent in middle school is black and white. Like, it's like yes or no. They can't see those nuances. And young people going through puberty and in their adolescence, they have a need to take risks. Right. So as parents, if I'm like, your child has a need to take risks that they don't even understand, and it's your job to provide them with healthy risks to feed that need, so that they're not going off left or go, okay, you all right? You're like,
this
you
is
okay?
like exactly what my parents did.
Your parents are very smart, right? They knew exactly what they were doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm part of a whole operation.
You are.
What are you telling parents? So you talked about like early and often like sex education, maybe it's like more developmental.
Yeah.
Like, are parents supposed to go up to their kids and be like, had any sex lately? Or like, what are those
What's the birds and the bee talk? Yeah.
Well, it's not the birds and the bees talk, because like
it's beyond
that's traditionally like it happens once and then you never talk about it again.
Yeah.
So like, what are those ongoing conversations look like?
Yeah, so when we talk, we use this approach, and it's really written for people who are parenting from 0 years old to 18 years old. So really, like, before 5 years old, you're really like naming body parts for what they are, right? We talk about it being also like a safety thing, not to call like a girl's vulva her flower, right? Because there's this urban legend that like something's happening to a little girl, and she's telling the teacher like, someone's touching my flower, and they're like, oh, it's okay, but actually she's getting like sexually assaulted, right? Because she doesn't have the words for it's an urban myth. But we can see how this could maybe happen, right? Because we all come up with cute little names for our kids' body parts, but it's actually really important to start that conversation really early, because we don't call our eyes like blinky things. We call them eyes, right? So we should be calling our genitals by their proper name, our vulva, our penis, it's really important. So that's kind of like the early. When you're talking about in middle school, I really like to use these teachable moments, because it is these little like moments where you get to like plant your seed. No pun intended. But like, you know, so like, let's say you see a TV show and you see someone kiss, you get to have a little conversation with your kid about that. Like, oh, do you think it's appropriate for like teenagers to be kissing? Like, I think, you know, like it's really good to like put those little like seats, so it's not like this one conversation. Or if something happens and you're like, oh, someone's getting married, you can have a conversation about that, right? Because I really think what parents could maybe think about doing is not having a conversation so much about sex. Like, preventing pregnancy and STIs is important, but also like how to navigate relationships, because that's what we're not talking about a lot with our kids. And I think that's the part that's getting kids like really tripped up, is like how to have relationships, especially with social media. And like that's a whole new thing. And parents my age and older, we didn't have that. We don't know how to net. Like, if I want to show someone my boobs, I had to go to their house, pull my shirt down, and like have some fucking balls about it. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't just be like, oh, no face, just boobs. You know, like I had to do it.
I had to sack up.
I had to like be like, here we go. Like, flashing is not a thing anymore because you don't have to do it. Like, when's the last time you ever heard about somebody getting mooned? Never. They'll just take a picture of it and send it to you. It's like, let's.
Should we bring it back?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, I think we need to bring it back. That is crazy. So how are you integrating social media or anything as part of your relationship teaching to kids, or are you kind of removed from it enough to not really have a stake in it?
No, you can't. You have to integrate it. It has to be like, we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't talk about it.
It'd be the white elephant in the room.
Yeah, I mean, so we talk about what are like the laws and the legality of it. Yeah. Because I think it's really surprising to know, and like very seldom does it ever get to this point, but like something that could actually happen is like if a young person is sexting and they're sending sexually suggestive pictures, whatever that means, whoever the judge or the attorneys are looking at it, they get to decide that. Whoever pays that phone bill owns that phone, so they could be charged with child pornography. So like so basically to say like young people's parents could be charged with like pornography because it's technically their phone. Right. Which is extreme, which probably would never happen. It doesn't happen very often, but it is in the law that it could. Yeah.
Whoa. And that probably helps parents. Like if more parents knew that, they would be a little bit more aware of the sexting scandals out there. In seventh grade, there was like a couple, I don't even know what you call them in seventh grade, but they got caught with nudes, and it was quite the scene. Yeah, I mean, some negative things happened. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like people were about to get charged and see jail. I don't know if it was jail time, but it was something bad.
Yeah, I'm sure. And like when we talk to young people about it, they don't care about that. They're like, no, it's not gonna happen to me. But then when we talk about like what are some of the like social consequences that can happen, what are some of the relational consequences that can happen, that makes it more real for them, right? Because again, in their adolescence, their friendship groups and their friends all of a sudden become the most important person to them. That's why they always start detaching from their parents when their parents were like their like most important person. They're like, I don't like you no more. My friends are so important to me. Developmentally, that's normal. So talking to them about like what some of those outcomes and consequences can be can kind of hit home to like really like maybe change behavior or get young people to stop and think, because that's what we really have to do. We have to tell young people, you need to slow it down. You don't have the capacity developmentally right now in your brain to think about the consequences in the future. You just don't. You're here and now, you're today, nothing bad's gonna happen, it's fine. You don't have the capacity to think about like, oh, that like somebody could take a picture, even though it's on Snapchat, somebody else could be with them and take a picture of their Snapchat, and then it's on their phone and they send it back to me, and they can't even think about that. Mm-hmm. So telling young kids like, you need to take 25 seconds, 30 seconds to stop and think about what you're doing and what could happen could really like save someone from, you know, a sexting scandal.
Yeah, I had a Razor in seventh grade. It was Razor phone and Sidekick, and I was like, as you're talking through that story, I was like thinking back of like how the pictures got around the whole school, and it was like the Razor phone or flip phone and all that stuff. And I mean, no Snapchat yet until junior year of high school, and then that changed the game. That changed the game forever.
See, I was like on MySpace, like in my early 20s.
Yeah.
You know, like we just didn't have it.
Right.
You couldn't pay me $1 bajillion to be a teenager today. Hail to the no.
Yeah. Exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. I don't know.
Exhausting is the perfect word. I have two younger sisters that are both in high school right now. One's a senior, one's a sophomore. And, you know, I always will like tell them like, hey, just like keep me in the loop. Like if anything's going on, just like not that I want to hear about it, but just, you know, like let me know if you're ever having troubles. And it's so interesting, like the additional social like anxiety that these girls are getting from just like Snapchat. Like if their friends don't snap them back after a certain amount of time, it's you assume the worst. I mean, we all do that all the time anyways.
Yes.
But it blows my mind. I think the idea of, you know, like waiting 25 seconds or thinking about something for 30 seconds before you do it, I feel like that's a good rule of thumb for like all life.
Yeah. Right now.
Yeah, I was like, I could use a little bit of that in my life. Not that I'm sending dick pics, but like I could
think before you speak.
I could think before I speak, and it'd be like a good practice for me.
Yeah.
But anyways, speaking of thinking before you speak, comedy.
Yeah.
I really want to know because I haven't been in the scene very long, as I'm probably 10 months in.
Oh my god.
And I know it's crazy, and I've noticed like I appreciate and respect the comics that go above and beyond with the vulgarity of their jokes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're one of them, and I want to tap into that mindset. I want to tap into that mindset because when you're at a comedy store or something and it's like a crowd that maybe doesn't respond to that, how do you respond? Do you just triple down and keep going? Or like, what is the mindset of a comic that tells absurdly vulgar jokes?
I don't know. I think for me, if I do a joke and I know like this joke usually lands and it doesn't, I just talk. It's like, this is about y'all. Mm-hmm. Like, what's wrong with y'all? Yeah. Like, especially like when I get into like the sex stuff, I'm like, oh, I get it. Nobody's like, you know what I mean? Like, I just talk shit about the audience a little bit, like in a fun way. Yeah. But I also think like who I am on stage is who I am in real life. Like I did a show at the House of Comedy, and it was just like the best, like phenomenal week that I ever had in comedy. Like I got to open up for Trevor Wallace, and it was like 6 sold out shows. This kid is like ridiculous. And I had someone come who I hadn't seen for a while, someone I went to college with, and she was like, that is exactly how you are. I was like, that's Khadijah. That was the best, because I don't want anyone to be like, well, this girl's like extra. Like, that's how I really am in real life. Like, I'm extra. And I think me being like bubbly and kind of theatrical and dramatic on stage is very different from like how most comics do comedy, right? Most comics are like, even if you're saying the funniest things, they just don't move. I'm just like, who put your glue on the bottom of your shoe to the floor? Like, and I think also that a little bit maybe helps people to like kind of relax a little bit. Mm-hmm. But like if I go somewhere and I have a set plan, I'm always watching the audience. I'm rarely paying too much attention to the comics, honestly. I'm watching the audience and how they're reacting, what they're reacting to, what they're not reacting to, who's in the audience, what the age range is. Because I have jokes. I'm 37 years old. I have jokes for 15-year-olds and I got jokes for 90-year-olds, right? Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So even if I go to a show and I'm like, this is my set, I'll look at the audience and be like, oh, I'm going to do all this different stuff because that's, you know what I mean? So, yeah. And that probably lends itself because I'm teaching in front of a classroom all the time. I'm doing, like, I, speak at conferences and do all these other things. To be able to read the room is like an underlying skill that I think a lot of comics have, but like some don't, that they could really use that skill.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like something I could use.
Okay. Definitely
something I can use. Because I always kind of toe this line between, if it's an open mic that's just it's like 20 comics in a room. Yeah. Like that is so much of a different room than if you were going to Acme or something where you have like a legitimate crowd. Yeah. So when I'm like preparing for these shows or whatever, and I'm hitting open mics every night, sometimes there's part of me where I'm just like, oh, these 20 same guys are here. I want to like put on a show for them. I want to make them laugh, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, who cares about like making up new material just for their pleasure? Like they don't give a shit. Like
not for the comics.
Practice your stuff. Get better at your material so that you can make the people who've never seen you laugh. So that is something like I probably learned the hard way for a while, where I was just like writing new material that on my way to like an open mic that I thought was funny, and then maybe that would stick. But then I started to realize like if you just commit to one sort of joke or something for a specific crowd, that's when it pays dividends.
But I think it's good too if you're writing jokes on the way to an open mic. That's where you're supposed to try that stuff. That's where you're supposed to just like say it into the mic. Like I did a show yesterday. It wasn't an open mic, but there was like 4 people there, and I was like, well, I'm not doing all my good stuff. I'm gonna do my new stuff,
right?
Because then then in my mind I'm like, oh, then I don't have to go open mic one night this week, and that's extra time I can be home. It's like, this is about me, like right now. This ain't even about y'all no more. Like I need to say these jokes in front of people on a stage and like get it out there once. You know.
Being able to read the room, and I applaud you for like being excited about having that attribute, because it's huge. We went and saw Joe Rogan on the 14th.
How was that?
So good.
Was it? I always hear mixed feelings about him.
So we're Joe Rogan, like...
Okay.
Disciples, rather.
Disciples?
Yeah, we listened to his podcast
okay.
for the past, like, 5-6 years, and that was one of the reasons why we started this. But his opener, Ian Edwards, he crushed it, and he had this one bit with reading the room perfectly. He asked the person right in front of him when he lost his virginity. And he goes, I don't know. And then Ian goes, what do you mean you don't know? You should know your name and when you lost your virginity. That's it. That's all you need to know. Your name is Joe and it's 18 or something like that. And he riffed it, and you could tell like that might have happened to him like once or twice in the past. And he had like a dud room, and he was able to pick that joke. And I was like blown away sitting in like row 400 just laughing my ass off. Like, imagine the guy in the front row sweating like, I don't know.
Crowd work can go really good or really bad. Because, like, I also don't, this is going to sound silly, I don't have a opener and I don't have a closer, like, joke. Isn't that wild? And I envy people that have, like, really good, strong openers and, like, a really great way to end their sets. I don't. Usually when I start a show, it's usually, like, I'm saying something about that show, or, just like
piggybacking off the
or like piggybacking or like riffing off of like what the other person said. Like if I do a show, I did stand-up science, which was really, really fun. Shane Moss, he's like this really cool like guy that does stand-up comedy, but he brings scientists to his shows. And I was like, well, I don't have a good and so it's like 2 scientists saying this brilliant stuff about their research and all these things, right? And then he just has a comic come, like, not to do anything, like just to do comedy. And then when I went up, I like made a joke about like, I was like, oh, this is like Scientology, and I like I just, you know what I mean, like I don't know what you
were
call
Khadijah.
It. I was just Khadijah, and I was just like, hey, like this is it. And I was the only black person in the room, so it felt good to be the 1%. That was my opener. But I couldn't have wrote that. I just had to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually want to touch on that. So
black people?
Exactly, dude.
Yeah. I was waiting for someone to say it. Like, anybody?
Reading a room, or I would just ask, like, because I've really never performed in front of a predominantly black crowd. How is so like what is the different dynamics for you when you're reading a crowd? Do you have like an entire set different like joke book for a like these kind of audiences, or how does it work?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're different jokes. They're presented differently. Okay. Right? Because it's just like a cultural thing. There's things that like black people will get that white people just won't get, no matter how funny it is. Right? If I'm talking about like growing up with my big mama and her baking biscuits on Sunday and her having advice that makes no sense, black people get that, because we all got an uncle that don't make no damn sense, that everyone's like, yeah, like, okay, you're good. But like, it's different for white people. The way black people cook is different than white people. And I actually have a joke about that, because my boyfriend's white and I grew up in the suburbs. So I grew up in like predominantly white culture, but like I'm still very black. You know what I mean? Like my family's from the South, from the East Coast, from you know what I mean? So that's like in my roots. So I kind of like live in these 2 worlds, and I talk about that. But sometimes if I'm in a predominantly black room, or like the audience is predominantly black, there's just things that culturally they'll get, and like I can make fun of that, like white people just will be like, I don't understand that, you know, and that's just what it is.
And they look around like that too. They're like, what?
Yeah.
Starting to sweat maybe a little bit. Yeah.
They're like, just talking about black people. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Like he did. Like he started sweating. He was like, oh my god, I thought we was gonna make it this hour, and she wasn't
I
going.
perked up a little bit. Yeah. Shut up.
Taj perked up like 8 times in this podcast. Squirting.
Tell me more.
Oh my gosh. And then for women in Minneapolis, and you being a black woman in Minneapolis, how is the comedy scene, and how have you seen it kind of like transformed over the past few years?
Yeah, so I want to say there's no more than 5 of us, black women in comedy in the Twin Cities. Over like hundreds of people doing comedy, and Minneapolis has a really good comedy scene. For me, I think it's helped. I don't, you know, people talk about tokenism and it's awful. It is awful, but you know, it's kind of worked out for me, you know, like, let's just be honest about it. Right. Because if people want diversity, and I'm funny, it's not just like, oh, like we got to have a black woman. Like I'm funny, like I am. And it's okay for me to say that. So let's see, black woman, I'm funny, and I can, you know, most of the rooms that I do are predominantly white, like white people fucking love me. White girls, they're like, you're my friend. I'm like, follow me on Instagram, bitch. Yeah. They be like, yeah, you my bitch. I was like, yeah. You know, white girls fucking love me. They do. Old white ladies love me.
Way.
Yes. That's my fan base. Like, people are like, oh, what's your fan base? White people. White people. I do, sometimes, it's crazy. This is going to sound crazy, but sometimes I feel like I do better in white rooms than I do, like, predominantly in black rooms.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I've kind of, like, grappled with that a lot, and I was like, well, I'm just going to keep doing all the comedy. Like, it doesn't,
Sure.
I'm just like, I could go back and forth with myself and figure out why that is, but I just have to stay true to me. And like, the truth is like, I grew up predominantly in a white community. Like like most of my friends are white. Like, it's just, I've always grew up in the suburbs. That's just my experience, and that's exactly who I am. And I'm not going to be like, well, I need to like change that because now I'm doing comedy and I should like represent something that isn't maybe true to me. And I'm like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
And that's interesting you said that, because comedy right now, you've seen a kind of a trend where comedians need to take a stance. They need to have these certain sides. And then there's the majority of them are just like, screw that. Why are you trying to put those social norms inside this industry that is free-spirited, and you're supposed to walk into the room, everyone's equal, and we're just here to laugh?
Right.
So with all that like society pressure, have you noticed the community being shifted at all, or have you seen the comedians staying true to who they are and not trying to be someone that they're not supposed to? If that question makes sense?
Yeah, okay. I don't know if it did, but I'm gonna talk and we'll see if it goes along with that.
This is our podcast.
Yeah. I think there's things that happen in the city that, like, especially on Facebook, because now I have a lot of like comedians on Facebook. So like, for example, when Louis C.K. came, right, it was a divide between the comedy community, right? And it was mostly like women and like people being like, oh, how dare Acme hire Louis C.K. and people were just like, whatever. And like, his show sold out and people were protesting, like comedians were protesting and all this stuff. And my philosophy on life is, the last thing I'm ever gonna do is get into it with somebody on Facebook. Like, I stay out of it. I mean, look, I might be like, hey, so I can like read the comments because I like the juice, right? Yeah. I like the juice, but I'm never that thirsty. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So, and I was just like, and I told a couple people this. I was like, it is so bizarre to me that we got 20-some people out there protesting Louis C.K. show. And there's a show on the other side of town that is for women, people of color, non-binary, trying to uplift these voices. And there's about 30 seats empty. Isn't that something? So while you're sitting over here protesting something that you have no control over, you're not supporting your city and the thing that you're protesting against. That made no sense to me. And I was on the show that night when people were protesting. That's why I'm saying this. You know what I mean? Yeah, like, I was at that show. And I'm like, why are people over here when they should be supporting this show? Yeah. Right? that didn't make sense to me. I didn't really like take a stance, because you got to remember, I came up in comedy when people were making rape jokes. You know what I mean? Like, it was different back then. And like I said, my mom is very explicit. So I have a different shield, right? I walk through this world with a different shield, and I navigate the world with a different shield. I don't have the ability to get so upset and like have that like keep me in my house. I gotta keep working, right? So, like, Black people, we've always been told we gotta work 2 or 3 times as hard. I did my first year of comedy, I did like 178 shows in 1 year.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You know, because I wanted people to know I was serious, and it paid off. I don't know how many other people can say that they did that their first year, you know? And that's not me bragging. It's just like, that was the drive I had and that I could have. Everything was in place for me. I had a good support system. My daughter was 14. My career was very stable. I'm very in a comfortable, I'm doing good now. Like, it worked out for me to be able to get out and hustle and grind like that. But my point is that, to your question that I don't understand, is that there is times where like comedy can feel divided, but for me, I just have to keep doing me, and I don't know if that answered any of your question.
Did. And I asked it because I've been like, the recent comedy specials that I watched were Aziz, Dave Chappelle, and Bill Burr.
Dave Chappelle, I love Dave Chappelle. He is really the epitome about, you know what, I'm doing what the fuck I want. You know what I mean? And like, yes, we can talk about these things. Comedy is supposed to be this release of really tragic things, right? It's supposed to be a joke about things that are hard to joke about. That's why we have comedy, right? We don't have comedy to talk about rainbows and gummy bears. That shit's already funny. We don't need to make it any funnier. We already like it. Let's talk about some R. Kelly P jokes. That's funny. In a really smart way. He did it in a smart way.
It was incredible.
He
went through minefields, and every single thing like that is society frowned upon right now. He tried to make it open to comedians and show them. Open to comedians. Yes, and I loved it.
And the thing also that just aired, Alec Baldwin's roast, and Caitlyn Jenner was on there, and I think it was just a great example of, like, we can just relax a little bit and have a good time. I mean, people were going, have you seen these roasts on Comedy Central?
Yeah, like Justin Bieber's.
Yeah,
and,
they went
James Franco
on everybody, right? And when Caitlyn came up, she really talked about, like, if as a transgender woman, if I can stand here and, be a good sport. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about, right? Everything doesn't have to be this or that, right? And I'm not saying if people hear something and it sparks something inside of them and it doesn't make them feel good, then it's comedy's not for you, or like hearing that's not for you. I respect that. I get that. But it's nice to see somebody from the community stand up and say, it's okay. We can make a joke. It doesn't have to be that serious. They just talked about my dick for 10 minutes and I'm okay. I laughed and I gave the guy a standing ovation. It's okay. And everybody did it in like a respectful, but yet they wasn't like, okay, well, let's tiptoe around this because we don't want to. No, they were like, Caitlyn, you showed up. Here we go.
Yeah. It's kind of like, to bring it full circle, it's very similar to how you attack the sex education world, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're up front and you kind of bring legitimacy to the situations, comedy's totally different route, but just like attacking in the sense of just being upfront about it. And the kind of the release you get from it.
Yeah.
In like, from my perspective, I say a lot of stupid shit, but when I'm like writing down like some serious stupid shit, like I'll be like, man, I don't know if I'd ever say this in public, but I'm like spending 30 minutes trying to figure out how to say this.
Yeah. Like,
that alone is so like, sorry. So
are you going through puberty now?
I'm going through puberty now, dude. As we speak.
It's so great to see.
I'm blossoming.
You
I really am.
We're proud of you.
Thanks, guys.
Mustache is coming.
Yeah. You can see it from there?
It's coming soon.
Shit. That's awesome.
Coming 2020.
Yeah, 2020, dude. My mustache is coming in full form, and it's going to be great. But I guess what I was saying is, like, I love that comedy can bring that out of someone. And it's not just me that's bringing it out of, it's bringing out of all the other people in the room that are like, holy shit, he just said that. That's fucking hilarious. Like,
yeah.
And like Andrew was saying, like Bill Burr, Chappelle, when we went and saw Joe Rogan, like these guys are intentionally trying to spin the wheel back to where it kind of was before. Because all these guys have been in the industry for 25, 30 years. I mean, and they're legends, right? And they are kind of seeing like not a downtrend, but just like this trying to pad up comedy a little bit. Like, hey, it's a really, really popular industry, but let's remember, we can say whatever the fuck we want.
Right, exactly. Because I just think it's so crazy. Like, Donald Trump is saying whatever he wants, but let a comedian say something, and people are just like in an uproar.
Right.
You know, it's like especially now, if people are saying it and they're just being mean, it's like, that's not funny. You know, but if it's funny and thoughtful and well executed, and what's the problem?
Right. But at the same time, it's like you write these things down with, I mean, the expectation that you're going to bomb one of these times. You're going to say this really vile joke and we're just going to be standing there looking at you.
Yeah.
And you got to power through those.
Yeah, I think it's harder for a guy than it is for a girl, to be honest.
Okay.
I really do. I think the guys get it a little worse than the girls do.
Yeah. I saw a guy, I won't say his name, but he told a rape joke like 2 weeks ago, and the mom in the front seat like started swearing at him and shit. I was like, this is real life.
This is real life, yeah.
This is real life. I was like,
whoa,
don't say that. That's a terrible way to, and he was just like, I'm 25. I'm in my mid-20s. I just wrote this down yesterday. Like,
I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess, is there a line? I don't know.
Yeah, we stay away from that line.
Yeah, that's a line like I would never even come close to, I don't think.
Yeah.
But there's...
I don't know. I feel like for me, like anything that's like racist or like, but like lighthearted racist. I don't want to say racist, but I think there's like cultural norms that are funny that people can talk about and it's not racist, right? Yeah. I talk about the difference between white people and black people. That doesn't mean like I'm racist. It just means like I've experienced these two experiences, and the way white people do stuff doesn't make sense to me sometimes. I'm like, that is so bizarre. Mm-hmm. The way that nobody seasons mashed potatoes. I went to my boyfriend's mom's house. She made mashed potatoes. She's an amazing baker. Very accomplished baker. Well, it's different. It's baking. I don't know. But the mashed potatoes, I looked at them. They were so fucking white with like, they just look like fluffy white. Not one granule of pepper, nothing. Huh. Man, it's very different for me. It's very different. They can't handle no spice.
Yeah. You know, for me, I think it is very awesome that black people can make white names like 80 times cooler. For example, there was this U of M basketball player whose name was J''son. Yeah. Jason. But J''son is like 10 times cooler.
That is my pet peeve. Reading like these kids in school, I'm sorry. You have no right putting any kind of punctuation in your kid's name at all. Stop it. Stop it. Your kid's going to try to get a job and he can't. Because someone's going to be like, oh, look at J''son. Next. Yeah. Stop it with the punctuation. I mean, the little, what is that thing called above letters?
Oh, yeah, like
the squiggly line?
Yeah, like senor, like the end, above end.
Whatever. Yeah. Like, that doesn't even do nothing. You just put it on their birth certificate because you want it to be fancy. Stop it.
Is that how like that's how competitive it works, or that they just want to do that because
I don't know. It's annoying.
It is annoying
because I get these class lists and I'm like, oh my god.
Craziest name you've seen?
I couldn't even tell you.
Ah, dang.
I couldn't even. I think that I had this kid. His name was like Trayshawn. It had some apostrophe in it. Trayshawn King. That was his first name.
Oh, wow.
Trayshawn King.
Wow.
Trayshawn
King.
Instead of Sean, they put a Trey in front of it.
No. Trayshawn King is the full first name.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. The King was I was like, because I was just like, oh, what do you like to be called? He's like, just call me Trey. I was like, I get you, son. I get you. Like, you already know. Yeah. You already know in 6th grade, that's some bullshit.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, transition here to the Backpocket core questions. We've been hammering you with a variety of questions, but now we ask the ones that we ask every podcast. Fine. And the first one is an average quality. And this is something you do well at times, and other times not so well. At the end of the day, it's your average quality. So, Khadijah, what is your average quality?
Awareness. Also, I also like to say emotional intelligence is my average quality.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm really good at it, and sometimes not so much.
It can get you in some sticky situations.
Yeah, I think like having self-awareness and emotional intelligence is the best self-care that someone can do for themselves, because it really gets to the root of like why you're upset, excited, mad, feeling betrayed, right? And sometimes emotions get in the way of figuring that out. But I always try to like take a minute and really figure out like why am I so annoyed or irritated, right? Because usually sometimes unfortunately it's not even about what that person did, it's about something else with me, and that puts the responsibility on me, and then it kind of helps that situation better. So that's my average quality.
Okay.
Social intelligence,
Emotional,
or emotional, not
Yeah.
social. Emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
that's a very interesting way to put it. I like that. It clicks in my brain, at least, because it's that constant practice of like looking inward and kind of evaluating your set of hierarchies or your last couple of days or your feelings. And I need to do that more of that myself.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned emotional intelligence too, because your profession kind of embodies a lot of emotional intelligence, and I'm guessing is your emotional intelligence is superior to most. However,
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But I want to also say like I work in an industry where I get to have really intentional conversations. I work with people who are like a variety of like into all of this stuff. So I feel very lucky and blessed that I'm able to explore myself and these concepts. So it's not something that I'm like, hey, this is something I like just thought. No, I'm very lucky to work in a field where I get to go to a training and like listen for an hour about emotional intelligence and being able to internalize that, not only use that for my young people that I work with, but for myself as well. So I just, that's not lost on me. My job has really helped me grow as a person.
And there's always more stuff to learn, and that's what you're mentioning, which is really cool.
Yes.
So on the flip side, from the average quality is what's in your back pocket. So this is something when pressure becomes stress, anxiety is rising, you're in a tough situation. What kind of quality do you rely on that's in your back pocket to help you come out on top?
Practicing gratitude 100%. Yeah.
I love that. Why gratitude?
Yeah, I think it's just a way to center yourself and being like, whatever's happening is not so bad, right? And just like practicing mindful gratitude. It's not just me being like, thankful I woke up this morning, right? It's really like, you know what? How many things in my life don't suck right now? Like really making a list and writing it down, like, this doesn't suck, this doesn't suck, this doesn't suck, like, this doesn't suck. And like, that really like flips the mindset of like, oh my God, life is overwhelming. Like my life gets very overwhelming. Sometimes I have a 15-year-old daughter, I have a family, I work full time, I'm doing comedy and everything in between that I'm doing, coming to podcasts, amazing podcasts like this, you know what I mean? And sometimes I'm like, I can't handle it all. But then I'm like, okay, time to practice gratitude. What doesn't suck right now? How have I been in so control of my time management? And like, kind of celebrating yourself, which I don't feel like people get to do, right? And so like having that moment with yourself to just practice gratitude, and there's like really specific ways we can do that depending on what's going on, that can really just help like get you right out of that.
Absolutely.
I love that. One question off that. What are you most thankful for right now?
That my car is almost paid off.
Hey.
That's huge.
Hey.
Yeah.
What kind of car do you have?
2014 Dodge Caravan.
Hey.
So sexy. Yeah, I bought it brand new. There was 2 miles on it. I feel I've had a car payment my whole adult life.
Damn.
I'm like, what am I going to do?
Yep, I'm paying off mine. I bought a new car last year, so it's,
You're on your way.
I'm on my way.
Yes.
I think that's like 7 years from now.
Mine was a 7-year loan. I'm like, I had a conversation with my car, like, we are common law now. We are in it for the long haul. You better hold up, goddammit. You better not break down on me, because people say that like once you pay your car off, it just breaks down.
It knows somehow.
Yeah. It's like, and I'm done, bitch.
See,
I'm not working hard for you.
That's like my active debate in my head right now is whether or not I should buy a new car right now. I have a 2005 Dodge Stratosphere, and this bad boy has been chugging for a year now. I've had to spend, I bought it for like $750 and I've spent probably $600 or $700 on repairs for it. Now the tires are going out, the check engine light just came on again, and I'm like, do I spend money on tires? Do
Dilemma.
I like? It's kind of tough because now do I go and buy myself a nice decky Dodge Caravan? I don't know.
I think so. You'd be surprised I went from a Cadillac to this Caravan.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. Right? I like had this cool Cadillac. And then I went from this. Let me tell you. Totally worth it.
Totally worth it. Yeah, I got a big ass Subaru Outback and I love it.
Yeah, I think a Subaru is gonna be my next one. I just like.
Ooh, let's go.
I don't know. They just feel like I don't know how many black people drive Subarus, but I want one. Then I just want to go to a state park and just see all the Subarus together, reunited.
Go to Denver.
Yeah,
they're everywhere.
Yeah,
It's a state car.
That's hilarious.
It should be at least.
Yeah. But practicing gratitude is a challenge, and that's like it's a breath of fresh air when you do things like practice that. So I love that you shared that with our listeners, and I think that's something that they can take away for sure.
Good.
And moving with that, the next question is a challenge question. So we want to tap into more of Khadijah and the network that you can provide for the Back Pocket, hopefully.
Okay.
Is there someone that you think you want to have on our show that we should go out and try to see if they're interested as well?
Yeah. So I mentioned her earlier, Miss Shannon Paul. I think she would be dope. So she was a radio DJ on B96. I don't know if y'all remember that station. It was like the only like local hip hop station in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And so now she works on the Jason Show. She's also an auctioneer.
I know who I've met this woman before.
Yeah, she's a comedian as well. And she's like a self-proclaimed nerd. Like I don't know if she LARPs, but she definitely goes to like Comic-Con or whatever.
Okay.
I don't know.
The Renaissance Festival?
More serious than that, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I think she's going to like these conventions and like dressing up in like stuff. I don't know. She like is really big into Harry Potter. I don't know anything about it. I don't know, but she's really, and she's also a nerd. She's fascinating. She
Shannon Paul.
Yeah, Miss Shannon
Okay.
Paul.
All right. And she's in the Twin Cities?
Yep.
Sweet.
Perfect.
And she's still practicing comedy?
Yep, she still does she does a lot of like corporate, and she does a lot of hostings, and so she's like
she's up there.
Yeah, she's like where I'm like climbing to be. She's like very inspirational to
That's
me.
awesome.
Yeah.
Have you done a corporate gig yet?
I haven't, but I have one coming up in November.
Nice.
Yeah, my first
Congrats.
one. Well, I got it from a nurse at my job. Like she works at the U2,
Hey,
so
hey,
yeah.
that's how you get all the gigs.
Yeah. So I'll do 45 minutes there. I'm figuring it out.
Whoa, 45?
Yeah, my first 45 is gonna be a corporate gig.
Wow, 45. That's impressive. What's the longest that you've done prior?
A solid 27.50.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is like so foreign to me right now. That's insane.
Yeah.
That is super cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm trying to figure it out.
That's
I don't know how it goes.
fucking cool, man.
It's gonna be sweet.
You got the next question, Andy?
No, this is a time we'd like to offer you a chance to ask us questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I want to know what y'all's average quality is.
Ooh. Okay. So we get to talk about our average qualities on our Thursday show every time.
The back end show.
The back end show, and we've been talking about average qualities now for
a long time.
Yeah, it's been.
Okay, I'll ask you a different question.
No, but I love that you asked this because we have to think of a new one every day, and because you have average qualities when the most random shit we bring up is an average quality, and as I'm talking right now, I'm trying to think of one.
You got one, Ty?
An average quality of mine?
Yeah, dude.
I don't know. I would say like coming here and like being fully engaged in the conversation. Like I've been, on my phone a little bit. And
yeah.
You have been.
Where's
slacking.
your rubber band?
We've noticed that.
Yeah, I just forgot it today. I just don't have it.
He carries a rubber band and he snaps it at himself.
I do not snap it at myself.
Yes, he does.
I do like.
That's a good technique.
Well, I
Yeah,
just like
so
kind of play with it.
Oh, you play? You don't snap yourself?
No, that's kind of like like that's weird.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
Satanic? Is that what
No,
you're
I was
doing?
gonna go with like a sadist, but I think that's not even the right word.
Okay.
So
We wouldn't have
I
quoted
think
you on
it is, but
okay. Well, anyway, I gotta do better at staying involved in the conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
The parts I've been listening to, great.
The
Okay, thanks.
ooh, thanks, Ty.
A real great compliment.
You're the best,
Kind of a
man.
backhanded compliment.
Oh gosh, my average quality right now is probably deflecting my frustration on other people.
Wow. That's a good one.
Thanks.
Yeah, because I've been receiving the.
I should have asked a better question. Can I ask you another question?
Ask another question.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay. So because I'm a sex educator, I should ask this question first, but I didn't know.
Oh, man.
What would you say to your listeners is your best sex tip?
Best sex tip?
Yeah.
Like in bed or just relationship
However
wise?
you want to answer that. I like to leave it open because I don't want
that's
to pressure people to
dude.
like.
I'm sweating. All right, here we go.
Dude. Oh my god. I think I'll spin it a little bit.
I think he's going first because Decky's fertile.
I've been fertile for years.
You ready for a baby?
No.
Oh.
No. Any female listening, be ready. Dial it in.
Oh my god, y'all about to get so many more followers. They're into it. They're gonna look at you.
I hope not.
He's falling apart. Okay.
I'm falling apart like right
Your
at the
face
scene.
is red.
Oh
You're
my
stressed out.
All right, here we go.
I should have started with that question.
this is a good question.
Yeah, a sex tip, dude. Oh
Where
man.
were you gonna say something?
Oh.
yeah.
Here it is. Like build the comfortability right away. Like if you see a girl at a bar and you're like, I care about this woman.
What?
That's how I describe it.
Okay.
I
She
just
completes me.
She completes me. Whatever. I can add this woman into my life. You have these thoughts.
Okay.
Build comfortability right away. So it's easy as a podcaster because like that's our job is like whoever's in the room, make sure they're comfortable so they feel comfortable talk about themselves and everything else.
Sure.
So building the comfortability, not only like in the initial stages throughout a conversation, if you do your job and she comes home with you or whatever, dude, right when you get home, you always offer like a glass of water. You always offer her like clothes, all the things.
You're just talking about having manners.
These are all things that lead to great sex. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah.
Because like, imagine a girl coming in this house right now. You just came in this house.
Yeah.
You're like, Jesus Christ, this is a college house. This is a glorified fraternity.
Yeah, but it's clean.
It is.
But it's clean. Listen, I'm 37. It's been a long time since I walked into a house like this. So, like, we're like roommates and got, all my friends, we got kids and,
Yep.
we see like nookies and toys everywhere. It's fucking mess.
Yeah.
So this was y'all's house is very clean.
Thank you.
Okay.
They have a clean house.
Good. So I'd say comfortability in general. Just be like a good hostess.
I think that's really important, being a good hostess.
Because think about the risk, like not the risk, but the implications of like a girl like coming home with you, especially when it's like we're 23, 24 now. It's not college where everybody lives in the dorms and we all just like bum rush the dive bar, and then now we're all coming back. Like that's why it was like it never even crossed my mind then. But now when you're going to North Loop and you got like a hodgepodge of people from all over the place, you never know what you're getting yourself into.
Right.
So
you're saying your best sex tip is be a gentleman.
Yeah.
There's nothing lost on being a gentleman.
No.
I
Chivalry's
love it.
not lost with Decky.
I love it.
Good for you, Deck.
What do you got, Andy? I'm
All right.
so excited for
I've
this
gotten
answer.
a couple of seconds here to think about it, and I'm gonna go with ask what they're into. Is I think that's a good practice.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was gonna be too chivalrous.
No.
But I think that's
If that's your answer, that's a great answer.
sweet. I'm going with that.
Yeah.
Ty, what do you got?
Yeah.
I would say
Deep breath.
He's sweating
Yeah.
too.
I am. It's hot in here and I'm nervous. There's so much going on right now. I didn't expect to get. I had to. Oh my gosh. Okay. No, I would say so. I'm in college and I feel like I am in situations a lot, like whether it's at like a house party or something like that. Especially in college, I think it's actually kind of a problem of like guys being like way too forward with girls.
Oh, yeah.
And like not, like just kind of getting like touchy or grabby, and it's like, dude, like you're not reading the signs of like what she's into.
Yeah.
I think my biggest thing would just be like be really cognizant of like if somebody's just giving you like bad body language or something like that, like pick up on that and don't be like, oh, like I just have to try again. Like if like one sign, like one negative sign, like get out. And if she's into you, then maybe she'll pursue it, but like let that be her decision.
So
and
what I
don't,
hear you saying is people need to be okay with rejection.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's like a machismo thing or something where dudes are like they don't want to be rejected, or they're just like, no, like she like I just gotta like try again. And
Nothing
it's like,
wong with being rejected. People should be good with that.
Perfect.
Wow.
Good answer.
I
Ty.
think that was definitely the most challenging question we've ever gotten on this podcast.
Yes.
that was
awesome.
Thank you.
You did it.
Thanks.
Yes. Ty, I'm proud of you for responding after a shaky 20.
A shaky start.
Yeah, 10 minutes ago I was questioning your.
It's been quite the podcast.
Okay, sweet. Well, this brings us to our final question.
Absolutely.
A simple question: what did you learn today from the moment that you woke up to when we're having this conversation?
So I don't know if I necessarily learned it, but I was definitely very reminded of it today. That I can only control my own behavior, thoughts, and actions. I can't control or assume somebody else's, right? I think sometimes we run through life and I'm like, I expect you to act this way. And like, if you don't act this way, then it affects me.
Mm-hmm.
And once you stop that, then it's like, whoa, like that's your stuff that doesn't have anything to do with me and that doesn't belong to me. Like I can only control myself and the way I react to that. And how I react to that could like really make me have a bad day or make me have a good day. So I was really reminded of that today. Like I can only control myself and that's all I can do.
Did we bring that out of you?
Nope.
I was gonna say, I was like, yeah, I didn't know our actions were so bad.
Nope. Yeah. That was something at 6:30 this morning that I learned.
Oof.
All right. Well, hey, you have been a phenomenal guest.
This was
I
so
just want to
fun.
say this was amazing. So thank you for coming on the Back Pocket.
Thanks for having me.